Xiao Yin looked at Xiao Zhan, who was playing with Xiao Xiao within the courtyard. He smiled slightly as he heard the old and young laughter. Perhaps it was because there was a blood relation between them, but after this period of familiarization, Xiao Xiao had clearly become a little familiar with this grandfather, who was a stranger. Her joyous manner completely did not treat him as an outsider. "Teacher, is there any news of the Hun clan?" Xiao Yin turned his head around after glancing at the courtyard. He looked at Yao Lao under the stone pavilion and asked. Yao Lao held the teacup and took a gently sip. Immediately, he frowned and nodded. Father has been monitoring the Hun clan realm during this period of time. However, there was no signs of a large group of people entering and leaving. There has been hardly anyone who had left the Hun clan alone. We have also completely cut off these Hun clan members who had appeared alone. However, we did not obtain any useful news. Sun Er by the side softly said. Xiao Yin also knitted his brow tightly. Logically speaking, the Hun clan should not be acting in such a calm fashion. They had been seeking the Tu-Shi ancient god jade for thousands of years. Now that we have found it after much difficulty, how could we not hurry and open the Tu-Shi ancient god jade? Just what are these people doing? Xiao Yin softly sighed. At this moment, being anxious would not be any help. All they could do was to wait for the Hun clan to take action. From the strength that the Hun clan had displayed back then, even if they were to launch a big campaign and attack the Hun realm, it would likely be a futile attempt. Moreover, if they were ambushed, the Alliance army would definitely suffer a great loss. Regardless of what the situation was, the Hun realm had been managed by the Hun clan for countless number of years. The latter would have the advantage of fighting in home territory. This was something that Xiao Yin and the rest were unwilling to see. We can only wait now. Yao Lao placed his teacup down and sighed. Xiao Yin smiled bitterly and nodded. They once again discussed about some matter before Xiao Yin finally lifted his head. He looked at the two figures, who had walked into the courtyard, and involuntarily smiled as he stood up and welcomed them. Big brother, second brother. One of the two figures who had entered had a somewhat stiffened footsteps, while the other had strong footsteps. These two were Xiao Ding and Xiao Li, who had hurried over from the northwestern region a short time ago. The injuries of Xiao Ding's leg had been treated by Xiao Yin during this period of time. The reason that his legs were unable to move back then was because of the poison from the Hun clan. With Xiao Yin's current ability, it would not be difficult to change a leg for Xiao Ding, much less expelling poison. The reason for Xiao Ding's stiff footsteps was due to him not feeling being used to walking with his legs. Xiao Ding Duo grinned after seeing Xiao Yin walking over with a smile. They stepped forward and smashed their fist onto Xiao Yin's chest. A deep bond between brothers was revealed within their eyes. Little fellow, back then I was still asking about why you are totally unconcerned about the Yin Alliance. It seems that this is because you possess an even more terrifying alliance on the Central Plains. Xiao Ding laughingly said. Xiao Yin was helpless. He did not really like to manage all these. He was forced by the circumstances when he established the Yin Alliance back then. It was his intention to create a faction that would be able to protect the Xiao clan from harm after he left. The Sky Mansion Alliance on the Central Plains, however, was established completely because he wanted to deal with the Hun clan. Otherwise, he would really not have the mood to organize some alliance. Is the situation at the Yin Alliance well? There isn't anything wrong, is there? Xiao Yin smilingly asked. Aye. That place is indeed considered a backcountry when compared to the Central Plains. Even the Hun clan did not extend its claws too far into it. The current Yin Alliance can be considered the overlord of the northwestern part of the continent. Of course, there are also some other fellows who are watching it with ill intent. Xiaoli continued to smile. Both of his eyes were shut. There was a glow glint flowing within them just like back then. In the current Yin Alliance, even some subordinates were afraid of this face of his and did not dare to lie in front of him. However, If those people were to learn that the chief of the Yin Alliance also have such an establishment in the Central Plains, it is likely that they will come submitting to us the next day. Xiao Ding shook his head and laughed. Xiao Yin also smiled. However, he was not really interested in this. Forget about the northwestern region of the continent. With his current strength, there were hardly any factions or experts that he was interested in even in the Central Plains. He did not have the time to bother about these small fights. Oh, that's right. Xiao Li suddenly recalled something as he suddenly turned towards Xiao Yin and said, "A couple of days earlier, I have received word from the Xiao Gate. It seems that some unknown experts had appeared at the Black Corner region. Those fellows were very similar to those from the Hall of Soul, whom we had fought before." Xiao Yin was startled upon hearing this. He thought for a moment before recalling with a bitter laughter. It seemed that it was the Xiao Gate, which both he and Xiao Li had established at the Black Corner region back then. Now that he thought about it, it seemed that he had left behind a foundation in many places. A person who did not specialize in management had ended up establishing so many factions. This was a little comical now that he thought about it. It could be some of the lingering forces of the Hun Clan. The Hun Clan also has some branch halls outside of the Central Plains. However, they are unimportant compared to those in the Central Plains. Xiao Yin shook his head and spoke indifferently. He had received many news of the remnant forces of the Hall of Soul being discovered every day. Hence, he did not really thought much about it. Xiao Li nodded after hearing Xiao Yan's words. He said, "In that case, I shall send information to the Xiao Gate and the Jianan Academy to finish them off." Jianan Academy? Xiao Yin smiled. He was about to nod his head when a light suddenly flashed across his mind. His body stiffened for a moment. In the next instant, he suddenly lifted his head. Both of his dark black eyes had light wildly flashing within them. The underground magma world. Xiao Yin suddenly cried out explosively, causing everyone within the courtyard to be startled. They hurriedly surrounded him. "What is it?" Kai Lin knitted her brow and asked. Xiao Yan's expression was a little excited. He grabbed Kai Lin's wrist and joyously said, "Do you still remember the underground magma world below the Jianan Academy's blazing Sky Chi refining tower?" Kai Lin's cold face immediately turned flush red after hearing his words. She stared at Xiao Yin in embarrassment and unceremoniously withdrew her hand from the latter's grip. How could she not remember that place? It was at that place that Xiao Yin, who had gone crazy, had forced himself on her. Ugh! Cough. Xiao Yin recovered after Kai Lin pulled her hand from his with great force. He looked at Kai Lin, who was so embarrassed that she had the impulse to bite at him. He was startled for a moment before he seemed to have recalled something, after which he quickly laughed in embarrassment towards the sky. Xiao Yin calmed down after laughing dryly. A glow flashed across his eyes. The location of the Tu-Shi ancient god mansion had always been a mystery. That Tu-Shi ancient god jade did not show any mysterious signs all the time that it had been in his hand. If one wished to really insist that there was, it would be the strange reaction of the ancient jade when he was at that place. That place was the underground magma world of the Jianan Academy. At that place, the Tu-Shi ancient god had shown a strange reaction for the first and only time. However, Xiao Yin had been chased by the strange creatures at that place until he was running around in panic. Naturally, he did not dare to investigate anything as he directly fled. Now that he thought about it, that magma world did indeed appear a little strange. Perhaps it was possible to find out some information related to the Tu-Shi ancient god mansion at that place. "Teacher, find 10 elite Do Shang from the Alliance Army to follow me. Sun Er, Kai Lin, the both of you should also leave with me." Xiao Yin did not hesitate even a little after he thought of this. He immediately spoke in a decisive manner. "Ugh? Where?" Everyone were startled after hearing Xiao Yan's sudden order. "The Jianan Academy. If I guess correctly, That place will likely have clues to the Tu-Shi ancient god mansion. Xiaoyan spoke in a deep voice. Yao Lao and the rest had a change in expression upon hearing this. Coincidentally, we have built a wormhole that connects to the northwestern region back then. I will lead some people over. Teacher, report this matter to Uncle Gu, clan head Lei Ying, and Yin Jin. Aye. Yao Lao nodded. If it was really as Xiaoyan had said, this would really be a big matter. However, I am also not very certain about this. Hence, tell Uncle Gu not to ease up on the monitoring. Once he discover a large group of Hun Clan experts, all of you should also hurry to the Black Corner region. Xiaoyan quickly said. Relax. After seeing Xiaoyan complete issuing his instructions, Xiaoyan briefly said goodbye to Xiao Zhan before leading Kailin and Sun Er to hurriedly leave. Yao Lao swiftly turned his head in a grave fashion and walked towards the meeting room after seeing the backs of the trio leave. Hun Realm. Hun Tiandi sat on the leader's seat within a large hall that had a black flame burning within it. He looked down towards all the bowing human figures below and asked indifferently, Is there any news? Replying to Clan Head, after our investigation during this period of time, we have found 5 areas that are similar to the places described on the map. After some careful observation, we have discovered that there is one place which has the greatest similarity. A black-haired old man respectfully replied. Oh. Hun Tiandi's indifferent eyes finally brightened after hearing this. He smilingly looked at the person below and said, Continue. That location is called the Black Corner region. Although there are currently many factions present in that place, the general terrain is completely the same as that on the map. The old man replied, Black Corner region? Hun Tiandi slowly stood up. His eyes swept over the hall as he said, Which group is the closest to that place? Clan head, Elder Hun Yu seems to be in that region. He is the person in charge of the Hall of Soul outside of the Central Plains. A person replied, Give him an order to lead all the members of the Hall of Soul outside to hurry to the Black Corner region. Completely eliminate that place. He should understand what to do. Hun Tiandi replied in a faint voice. Understood. The black-clothed old man below immediately replied in a respectful manner and slowly withdrew. Hun Tiandi lifted his head after seeing the old man disappear. The smile on the corner of his mouth widened, after which it turned into a loud laughter that resounded within the hall. I have finally found you, ancient god mansion. The outer regions of the Black Corner region. Dozens of black-robed figures quietly advanced on the mountain road. A moment later, they paused just beyond the edge of the mountain road where a gate was situated. Who is it? This place is my Demon Blade Gate's mountain gate. All passerby should hurry up and leave. Over a dozen people guarding the mountain quickly lifted their ghost blades in their hands after this group of somewhat strange individuals paused in front of the gate. A fierce glint flashed across their eyes as they spoke in a stern voice. The Black Corner region is beyond this place, right? The leader of the group of black-robed individuals spoke in a faint, elderly voice. Humph, since you are aware that it is the Black Corner region, why don't you hurry up and get lost? This is not a place that anyone can simply barge in. A strong man at the gate, who appeared to be the leader, let out a cold snort. It looks like we have come to the right place. The leader involuntarily laughed after hearing this. He slowly lifted his head and revealed an indifferent face under those black robes. His bone-like hand was extended from his sleeve as he spoke in an indifferent voice. Kill them. Leave no one alive. Understood. The dozens of figures behind immediately replied in a deep voice after he opened his mouth. Swoosh, swoosh. The person at the mountain gate became cautious after the old man opened his mouth, after which a warning bamboo whistle was swiftly emitted from his mouth. How dare you act presumptuously in front of my Demon Blade Gate? The warning bamboo whistled was emitted. Before that person could finish his cold cry, however, A black figure was magnified in his eyes. In the next moment, his body had actually exploded into a cluster of blood. At the same time, the mountain gate behind him was also blasted into dust. An enemy attack. This sudden explosion resounded over the mountain. Immediately, the sound of rushing wind sounded. Thousands of figures rushed out from the mountain. They held large blades in their hands, which had a densely cold luster under the sunlight. You actually dare come to my demon blade gate to cause trouble. It seems that you have some ability. A figure holding a large blade slowly walked forward from amongst the man-people. However, his powerful aura, which could match an expert Do Huang, had just surged when the black-clothed figure flashed and appeared in front of him in a ghost-like fashion. The latter's sleeve was gently waved, and this well-known expert Do Huang in the Black Corner region was blasted into a bloody fog in front of the many stunned gazes. Kill all of them. Additionally, send the information to the other units to attack. I hope that only our people will remain in this Black Corner region after today. The black-robed leader spoke in an indifferent manner after blasting apart this demon blade gate's chief with the shake of his sleeve. Understood. The dozens of black figures once again replied after hearing his words. In the next instant, monstrous Do Chi erupted from them. Black chains cut through the air, and a slaughter was being enacted. Today was the joyous day when another batch of new students was going to enter the Jianan Academy, and its older students being promoted to the Inner Academy. Hence, the Academy had held a ceremony. The entire Academy was currently filled with a joyous atmosphere. The open ground where the ceremony was held was basically filled with people. Many chaotic voices gathered together and charged to the cloud. There was a couple of large combat stage placed at the middle of the open ground. At this moment, Do Chi continued to burst from the combat stage. Human figures crossed each other. Their sparring appeared unusually fiery hot and intense. The occasional victor would stand proudly, attracting the eyes of many young ladies. The entire academy was currently filled with the liveliness that the youth ought to have. Two huge stone statues stood at the middle of the couple of combat stages. One of them was that of an old man while the other appeared young and handsome. The age of that young man seemed to be similar to that of the students. This situation had attracted some doubts of the new entrants of the academy. Senior sister, one of those two statues belonged to the legendary headmaster, but who does the other one belong to? He doesn't appear very old. A couple of young ladies, who were filled with liveliness, surrounded a tall and beautiful lady as they curiously asked, "That is the most outstanding person of the Jianan Academy. Do you know about the Pan Gate and Shao Gate? They were founded by this senior. The reason that you were able to successfully pass through the Black Corner region when heading here is because of the Shao Gate's prestige. If it was in the past, there would have been some new students dying in the Black Corner region every year. All of you have experienced the ferocity of that place." The tall young lady's pretty eyes contained a strange expression as they looked at the huge statue and laughed. "He appears to be extremely mighty? Hee. Where is this senior currently at?" a young lady laughingly asked. "He has long since left the Jianan Academy. The last time around, I had heard the elders say that the senior has headed to the Central Plains. That is a place that is said to be filled with experts. Hence, all of you should forget about your wishful thinking. It is also senior sister's thoughts, right? You are asking for a beating?" Su Qian on the towering stage looked at the lively atmosphere on the open ground. His elderly face had a small smile on it, after which he lifted his head and looked at the two statues on the open ground. He involuntarily shook his head. It had been decades since he had met these two, right? I wonder how that fellow Xiao Yin is now? Given his talent and ability, it is likely that his achievement would be quite great, Su Qian muttered to himself. During these many years, the Jianan Academy had recruited many extremely outstanding individuals. However, All of them were a little inferior if they were compared with the young man from back then. First, Elder Su Qian. A voice was suddenly transmitted from behind while Su Qian spoke. He turned around and involuntarily smiled. There were 3 figures behind Su Qian. They were 2 ladies and a man. One of the lady was wearing an instructor robes. Even though the clothes appeared formal and large, it was unable to hide her graceful, delicate body, especially those rare long and sexy legs, which had attracted the eyes of many. The other lady was wearing a red dress. A whip was placed on her waist. Her pretty face caused some students to be afraid of taking another look, who was unaware of the fierce reputation of the demon female instructor Hu Jia in this academy. Anyone who was targeted by her would be going to have a hard time. There was a man beside the 2 of them. His expression was indifferent. On his back was a huge, heavy sword. If one stood closer to him, one would feel a suffocating aura pouncing onto them. The 3 of them could be considered to be the most outstanding individuals in the Jianan Academy. If Xiao Yin was present, he would be able to recognize these 3 familiar faces: Xiao Yu, Hu Jia, and Wu Hao. The 3 of them were already considered the backbone strength of the current Jianan Academy. Xiao Yu had advanced into the Do Zone class 2 years ago, while Hu Jia had reached the peak of the Do Zone class. It was only a matter of time before they stepped into the Do Zone class. Are you thinking of that fellow again? Chi, it has been so many years. I wondered if he had managed to catch Sun Er. Hu Jia sat down beside Su Qian in a grand fashion. She glanced at Xiao Yan's statue, curled her mouth, and said, "You can be rest assured that his achievement is definitely at a level that we cannot even compare with." Wu Hao revealed a smile. It seemed as though he had recalled the time back then when the 4 of them had formed a group to snatch fire energy. "Blah, I will be able to reach the Do Zun class this year," Hu Jia said. He had already dared to fight against the Do Zun class 10 years ago. Xiao Yu by the side smiled sweetly. Her pretty eyes looked towards the statue. There was a complicated emotion flowing in her eyes. "The both of you can just speak for him. It is not as though he can hear what you say." Hu Jia spoke somewhat bitterly after hearing this. "You have already grown so big, but you are still behaving like you did back then." Su Qian smiled. He looked at the instructors and elders gradually filling up the surrounding seats before slowly standing up. The originally noisy open ground had quickly become much quieter as he stood up. Many pairs of eyes paused on him. Currently, Su Qian was undoubtedly the true person in charge of the Jianan Academy. Meng Tianqi was far too irresponsible as the person in charge. Even some of the instructors had nearly forgotten his name. Su Qian, who had stood up, looked at the many young and tender faces. He involuntarily let out a warm smile. However, he was about to speak when he suddenly frowned. His eyes leaped over the sea of people and looked at the horizon. There was some intense rushing whine sound being emitted from the spot. A bloody killing aura accompanied this sound. Wu Hao. After having managed the academy for so many years, Su Qian had already become as calm as a mountain. He immediately spoke in a calm manner. "Law enforcement unit. All elder. Be alert." Wu Hao immediately stood up. His body slowly rose into the sky and spoke in a deep voice. Rushing wind sound appeared from the seats in the academy after his voice sounded. Many figures quickly appeared around the open ground. Their eyes were cautious as they looked at the sky. This sudden scene had also greatly startled these students. However, they did not turn into an uproar after being calmed down by the many instructors. The rushing wind sound became increasingly loud as everyone became alert. A moment later, a large group of black shadows appeared in the horizon. Within a couple of flashes, they appeared in the sky above this place. Today is a joyous festive of our Jianan Academy, and it is inconvenient for us to receive outsiders. I hope that all of you can forgive us." Su Qian looked at those black figures in the sky and frowned slightly. He could sense a dense bloody scent from these people. His heart immediately sunk. It seemed that the friendly individuals would not come, and those who did so would not be friendly. Festive? The leader involuntarily smiled slightly after hearing Su Qian's words. He slowly pulled open the cloak and revealed a shriveled face. He glanced at Su Qian. His voice contained a trace of ripple as he said, "Bring everyone and leave the Black Corner region in 2 hours." Is this enough? Friend, one should not be joking in such a manner. Everyone's expression had changed at this moment as Su Qian opened his mouth and spoke in a deep voice. If it was not because he could not clearly detect the strength of this person, he would have likely already attacked in anger. If it is insufficient, all I can do is to kill all of you. Although you consist of children, we do not have any choice. The black-robed old man spoke in an indifferent voice. There was a fury leaping within everyone's eyes after hearing his words. Elder Hunyu, that statue, it looks like that brat Xiao Yin. A person beside the black-robed old man in the sky suddenly pointed towards the statue below and said, "Oh, that Xiao Yin who have destroyed my Hall of Soul?" The expression of the old man, who was called Hunyu, immediately became gloomy. He densely stared at the statue and immediately let out a strange laughter. Originally, I was planning on retaining some kindness. However, it is unexpected that a statue of that person is located here. Since this is the case, it looks like I must turn this place into a bloodbath. Listen up, turn this place into a bloodbath. Do not allow any one of them to remain. A monstrous murderous aura quickly rose and spread in the sky after Hun Yu's voice sounded.